developing the programme. I don't know if you can remember back then, but actually we were in lockdown at that point. And certainly in Wales, were very limited in what we could do. So the whole programme was actually developed over Teams and Zoom and various remote means. But we did manage to launch the Circle on the 31st of March as a digital programme. To be fair, it was a launch of what we intended to do rather than what we'd actually done, because the COVID rules at the time didn't actually allow us to do anything. So what's happened since? So Pembrokeshire Circle, share. Oh, sorry, next slide, please. So Pembrokeshire Circle is share, repair and extend. So the share element is the library of things. Here's a library. We've got lots of things in the library, from bikes to lawnmowers to strimmers to drills and circular saws. And you can basically borrow those items for a night or a weekend or a couple of days for a very small price, normally for sort of £1 to £5 for a gazebo. Most of the items have been donated. They're things that people were going to throw away or had in the back of their cupboards that weren't being used. Myself, I donated a circular saw, which had been sat in my cupboard for a number of years, not doing anything, and which I decided somebody else could benefit from. The premise of the Library of Things is that not only does it reduce waste, but it supports the community. And most of our borrowers are people who can't afford to buy these bigger items. They're people who live in supported housing. They're people who are in our deprived communities who need to use an item but can't afford to pay £200, £300, £400 for that particular item. So instead they borrow it from us for a couple of pounds. It's been really successful, and it's growing all the time. Not in the case study, but new. If you can change the slide. Thank you. So new, really hot off the press, is as part of our Library of Things, we've actually developed a borrow a bike scheme. We had lots of bikes donated to us. It's one of those items that people outgrow, stop using, have in their garage, and you get lots of bikes that are sent to landfill. So we had lots of bikes. One of our partners is Skolton Manor, and they have a bike track which was really underused. We run a shop there and our customers were telling us that they would use it, but actually they didn't want to bring a bike to Skolton. It's about 5-6 miles out of the town centre. We've also got some groups of people with learning disability and autism who were using the site, and they wanted to be able to learn how to use bikes and use bikes. But again, they didn't have the bikes, they didn't have the transport to get a bike to the site. So they came up with the idea of borrow a bike, and it launched about 2 months ago now. Since then, we've also linked up with another local organisation that had lots of accessible bikes that were sat in a shed not being used. So we've linked the two things together, and now we have a fantastic scheme which allows lots of different groups to use bikes out in the site. On over the summer, everything will be available to families, so it's had both the benefit of improving in community engagement and activity and health, as well as not having these items go to landfill. Next slide. The repair part of the programme is Repair Cafe. We registered as part of this programme 11 repair cafes across the county. We decided one didn't work. As I said right at the start, we are rural, and we've got lots of small communities. So we actually established a number of repair cafes across the community, looking at focusing on various different things. So we've got a bike repair cafe in the north of the county. We've got a repair cafe that's run by one of our day centres in the south of the county. We've got another repair cafe that's more central, that's looking at garden tools, for example. The aim of the repair cafe, they're pop-up events that happen once a month. And the aim is to give items that you don't want to throw away a bit more life. But they also provide learning, skills, social interaction for people, and have really promoted social cohesion in some of the communities that they're in, bringing together, as I say, the day centre in the south of the county has brought together the people that go to that day centre with people in the community, and has allowed them to be more socially engaged in that community. Next slide, please. So these are just some images of we did a big repair cafe where we brought all of the repair cafes together, and we recorded a show for BBC Radio Wales. And the variety of things that were repaired at that repair cafe was enormous, from bikes to printers to CDs to a Vax Hoover to garden equipment. And I think somebody even bought in a cello case that wanted a new zip. So it was hugely popular, and a huge range of things that have stopped being going into landfill. Next slide, please. The extend element of the programme is a whole series of workshops. Now, this is where our supported employment really comes into its own. What we're trying to do here, and what we're giving people the opportunity to do, is actually take items that have got to the end of their life or got a bit tatty, repair them, remanufacture them, and allow them to be reused. We've got workshops located across Pembrokeshire. They're not all run by us. They're run by a number of organisations. So we're using, in this instance, using circular economy to provide work experience and training. And it's also created a really vibrant day opportunity for people as part of our day services offer, where people who would traditionally have gone to a traditional day service are able to engage in things that benefit the community. It's been really popular. We're full all of the time, and we could probably fill it about 3 times over. Next slide, please. The principle of this, and using that whole circular economy basis, one of the things that we had lying around was a whole series of desks and chairs that come out of County Hall. The desks had come out of County Hall, the chairs had been lying around for ages. The programme that we were looking at was town centre regeneration. And one of the things that we wanted to do was ensure that everything around that, that what we were doing actually remanufactured things. So actually a lot of the furniture that we used as part of the regeneration process came from and was remanufactured from a pile of old desks. So we made desks, smaller desks, we made tables, we made benches, and the buffets all came out of the pile of desks that we had. The sofas that you can see actually came from a local tourism provider who had some sofas, and we recovered them. And then we changed some of the chairs into benches and upcycled those to be the furniture within a community cafe. Next slide, please. And this is the community cafe. So this was an unused retail unit. It was Wimpy, if people can remember Wimpy, in the centre of Haverfordwest. It'd been empty for probably about 10 years. So we stripped it out, we redecorated it, we refurnished it, all using that supported employment concept. So it provided training and work experience for that group of people, all using that reuse philosophy. So a lot of the old equipment that was in there, we repaired, we reused, we cleaned wherever we could. Or to say, all of the furniture came from those desks and chairs, and it's now a really vibrant community cafe that is used by a number of different groups. I was in there with one of our heads of service and somebody from the UK government the other day, and every table was filled by either a group of older people or people with disability, because that's what the cafe was designed. It was designed to provide a social space for those individuals, using circular economy as the basis for being able to do that. So it's been really, really successful. I think, other than my contact details, thank you. I keep saying community involvement is really important in this. A lot of the aim of this was to improve the community action for waste management. So by donating, repairing, extending, and using items for longer. And what we wanted to do was really get into that community spirit. And although this was a very time-limited funding stream, what's happened is that a number of projects and activities have come out of the work that's happened. We've got a TerraCycling project that we're now working with with a community organisation on. As I say, we've done Borrow a Bike. We've ended up doing a lot of other things on the back of this, because of the community engagement that we've been able to generate as a result of this. So thank you for listening. These are our contact details. I'm happy to answer questions if anybody's got any.
Thank you so much, Karen. Really, really great presentation. Nice to see the kind of variety and projects you can deliver when tackling the circular economy and waste, and also the importance of community involvement throughout all of those projects. So really, really creative and really inspiring. Thank you. So we're going to move into the Q&A now for the last sort of 15 minutes of this session. So yep, Frida's back, and I think we're expecting Sandra Bell as well. So do get your questions into the chat. Hi, Sandra. And we'll put them to our panel right now. Our first question comes from Alana, and I think this is for you, Karen. She's asking, I guess, in the community engagement side, how can we embed this borrow model or kind of borrow mentality to those economically well off, who also then have the highest consumer footprint anyway? Any thoughts?
Yeah, it's been interesting. We've had a lot of items donated by people who are well off. We've also had a lot of we've had a lot of community groups that have borrowed things. It's about plugging away, really. And I wouldn't say that it's only been people who are from those poorer communities that are borrowed. Certainly, we've had people borrow. We had some gazebos donated, and they get borrowed by a really wide range of groups of people. And we tend to focus on space and that idea that actually we don't want to be storing stuff, and that we are limited, and that people and playing on those people's conscious that they want to improve the environment, and actually what we're finding is that the borrowers that we're having are probably equally that, while we set it up very much for that community low income group of people, actually what we're getting is it's a very wide group of people that are borrowing. We don't discriminate. Anybody can join the library. We don't ask if they're somebody in supported living or what have you. We just promote the library to anybody who wants to borrow things.
Fantastic, really well answered. Thank you. Sandra, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, just really to kind of add to what Karen's saying, really, that I think what we find is that, really across kind of economic groups, people can feel a bit overwhelmed by the climate crisis, the nature crisis, and actually people of all groups are looking for something kind of fairly more immediate and practical that they can do to help. So I think, these kind of amazing local initiatives are, they give people a way that they can feel that they're contributing. So that's fantastic. And I think also actually some of the kind of, products that Karen was describing there, and the kind of uniqueness of some of the kind of products that are upcycled, I think also would kind of appeal to those kind of maybe to sort of people with a bit more money to spare as well. So yeah, I think there's stuff in there that will appeal to everyone, really.
Thanks, Sandra. I think I completely agree that it's also about the quality, isn't it? If we can have high quality products in a library of things, that will appeal to as many people as possible. Your lawn mowers or trimmers, for example. That's great. So moving on to a couple of other questions. So one regarding the kind of economic sustainability. So just a thought on Karen, whether does the library of things more or less pay for itself, and are the repair cafes sustainable going forward? What's the sort of broader slant on that?
So the repair cafes are definitely sustainable. They're actually really cost effective. They're run by volunteers, so it is really about social action. There's very little cost to running a repair cafe. The individuals who want items repaired pay for the materials to repair, but they get the repair for free. And it's all run by volunteers. And so from a repair cafe point of view, yes, I think it's a really sustainable model. Library of Things is an interesting one. The model that we've used, which is around social supported employment, is sustainable. So because of the other benefits of supported employment. So the people that we employ to run it have a disability, have support needs, and we use access to work to excuse me, to support those individuals. So the money that we get from the Library of Things, together with the access to work grants, make it sustainable for us. Whether that would work without that, I'm not sure. But we had to come up with a model that would work in our environment. As I say, we're a small county with a small population, and I think certainly the model in town centres can work in a different way, and the income that you're generating from the loan of the items, because you're lending in much bigger volumes, makes it sustainable. And I know other models use a lot more volunteers than we do.
Yeah, very good answer, and good to see the sort of, I guess, innovation even on a smaller scale of tackling the finances behind it. I guess a sort of linked question about the repair cafes from Megan, who asks how you initially went about finding volunteers to staff the repair cafes, because I assume some of them will need specialist kind of electrical knowledge or carpentry knowledge, for example.
Yeah, so I'm just going to turn my phone off. Because we run a load of employability projects, we sort of have an embedded group of volunteers that we work with, and we actually use social media to put out a request for volunteers. I actually am part of social care, so I sit within social care. So we also knew that we had a big group of people that were wanting to be active, and we kind of put out the request all over the place, and we got an amazing response. We also linked into the men's sheds network who provided a number of volunteers. So I think our volunteers are mostly retired individuals who were socially excluded, but professional individuals who were looking for something to do. We never had a shortage of volunteers.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, and great to see. I think someone's picked up on it in the chat as well. They kind of joined up thinking with employability as well. And as you've mentioned, you're in social care, so really bringing down those departmental silos and the real great impacts it can have. And another quite specific question from Sue asks about the sort of health and safety issues around borrowing tools, I guess, of Library of Things, and I guess also then potentially with repair cafes with the volunteers as well. And I think, unless she is really thinking about it, she's frozen. So I will, as we wait for Karen, and perhaps Elizabeth, could we invite you to quickly speak about your schools or the work you're doing with schools and their eco refill? I'll just invite you to speak.
I think I might have dropped out.
Oh, no worries. Yeah, sorry. We'll stay with you then. Elizabeth, we'll bring you in a second. I was just asking about the health and safety requirements associated with people borrowing things from Library of Things.
So we pat test everything electrical. So we have a team of people who pat test everything. We have a Library of Things. We worked with Benfey Comrie, who is the sort of the Library of Things national group in Wales, and they have a whole series of policies and procedures that we backed into. People are borrowing something on an as-seen basis, so we do our utmost to make sure that it is safe. We do lots of checks. We do lots of we make sure everything is in good repair before we lend it out. But if somebody breaks something, we don't expect them to pay for it. And similarly, if it breaks when they're borrowing it, we expect them not to blame us. So it's an interesting rationale, but people are borrowing, not hiring. There's a slightly different legal basis.
Yeah, really interesting. I mean, you could probably write a case study just on that alone, on the kind of interesting. Fantastic, thank you, Karen. So Elizabeth, you should now have access to talk. So if you take your stuff off mute, hopefully that should give you the ability to talk.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Great, okay. So I've been working with schools for about a decade, helping children set up healthy tuck shops and as an enterprise project. And actually, shortly before lockdown, figured out that that could be adapted to create eco refill shops that the children could run for their school communities so that they could encourage everyone to reduce their plastic waste. And so what the children are doing, they have a journey similarly linked to employability skills, but a much younger set from about 9 years old upwards. And they are setting up eco refill shops, writing a business plan, applying for their job roles, and then going on to operate them and selling refills to their school community of body wash, hand wash, and washing up liquid. And we've just extended it a little bit into laundry products. So it's really lovely. It's being funded at the moment in a pilot in London by the GLA, but it's something that can be done nationally. And we've got 12 school sites working across 8 London boroughs. So we're beginning to gather data, and overwhelmingly the communities want school-based eco-refill shops, and some communities don't have a refill shop locally. Some do, but actually, certainly I think for parents, it's quite a lot to juggle all of the parenting side of things with remembering refill containers and going to refill shops. And also some of them are quite cost prohibitive. And actually by doing this within the school community, it opens it up as an activity to parts of our communities that hadn't perhaps even considered refilling. And the pricing is very inclusive. You'd be charging, most schools are charging for 500 ml of washing up liquid, £1.50, 500 ml of body wash, £2.50, and 500 ml of hand soap, £2.20. And the interesting thing there is the products that we are using are fully circular. The containers that they come in get returned to the manufacturer and are cleaned and reused there. And so the children have a really powerful example of a simple but very effective circular economy in action. And we all talk about net zero 2030, 2040, 2050. These children will be in the workplace then. So I think that's something that's quite useful to remember. And for me, this challenges everybody to say, well, what little bit can we do? Sorry, I'm giving you a super pitch, but I don't know how long I've got. We know from the research that we've got back so far that about 1/3 of the people who've bothered to fill in our survey have never refilled before. So that's great. Yeah, we're definitely seeing elements of behaviour change. We're seeing skills building and plastic waste reduction, which is great. What I want to know is how powerful that's going to be. And hopefully it will be something that councils will be able to take to supermarkets and say, well, actually the community's ready, you need to do more. But you know, that's my my big goal. So that's the pupils' profit super summary.
Fantastic. That sounds really, really creative and inspiring. Thank you for that. We'll definitely, so Ashton run a schools program called Let's Go Zero, and we'll definitely look to share that with our network there. So thank you so much for that. So Karen, I'll just give you the final word, one final question. If someone wants to talk to their local authority, or they work at a local authority and want to start a repair network or a library of things, what's the first thing they should do to get the ball rolling?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Find somebody to listen, I guess. We just, the Repair Cafe, in this instance, Repair Cafe Wales emailed everybody they could find in the local authority from the regen department. And actually they didn't, I don't think they did contact social care. I think that actually, it was one of my regen colleagues who did that, but it was, yeah, they just contacted loads and loads and loads of people, including councillors, who shot the messages around everywhere. It does help when there's funding attached, because that does get people's attention. But yeah, find groups, find people who are linked in. I think one of the things, certainly for us, that's come out of the COVID pandemic is that there is a lot more partnership and community engagement between the local authority and the councils. So there is a lot more opportunity for that engagement than there ever was, because actually we're wanting to work with other people. We're recognising the power of community and what can be achieved by working in collaboration with community rather than against or in competition with. That's another research paper in terms of how do you work in collaboration with communities to get the best.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for that, and thank you, Karen, from Pembrokeshire, on your really brilliant presentation, case study, and answering those questions, quite a lot of questions, very diligently. So that's the end of our nature session. We've got one more session coming up, and that's going to be led by Sandra Bell, looking at the overarching lessons of the whole toolkit process.